everyone, to our final episode of Offstage Drop the Act. And it can be fun to wear fancy clothes and act like someone you are not. But in real life, we don't have to hide who we really are. You can drop the act and you can choose to live with integrity. Integrity is choosing to be truthful in whatever you say and do. Integrity is really important. People need to be able to trust you. They need to know that when they're talking to you, they're talking to the real you. That you're not trying to be someone you're not. After all, God made you who you are for a reason, and He thinks you're amazing. So you don't have to pretend to be anyone you're not. You can choose to be truthful in every part of your life. So let's dive in and see what the guys are up to today.
Man, this is tough. I don't know if I should do this or if I should not, or gosh, what do we do here, young Steed?
Hey Zora, what's up? How are you and Steed?
Man, I got a fight in my mind right now, man.
What's wrong?
I don't know if I can tell you. It's a really big thing.
I mean, you can tell me anything.
Hey everyone, it's been fun talking about integrity this month. We've looked at some good examples about how to have integrity, and last week we saw an example of what not to do. This week we'll take a look at some really important verse from the book of Philippians. Philippians, like many of the books in the New Testament, was written by a man named Paul. Sometime after Jesus had died, then ascended to heaven, Paul went around telling people about Jesus. He started lots of churches across Asia and Europe. He would go to a new town, tell people about Jesus, then start a church. Once there were enough believers, he'd move on to another city, tell people there about Jesus. That's amazing. The book of Philippians was a letter Paul wrote to the church in the city of Philippi. He actually wrote the letter while he was in prison. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he'd been arrested for telling people about Jesus. Man. So this is what Paul wrote in Philippians 4:8. Finally, my brothers and sisters, always think about what is true, think about what is noble, right, and pure. Think about what is lovely and worthy of respect. If anything is excellent or worthy for praise, think about those kinds of things. You see, Paul wanted the Philippians to understand that what you think about matters a lot. Let's dive into today and see why.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story. Inspired by the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 8.
Horatio liked to keep track of things in his head. 5 kinds of cereal in the cabinet. 17 braids on his sister Nala's head. 2 voicemail messages left on his parents' landline phone.
Seriously, Mom? You are so stuck in the 1990s.
Horatio was especially good at keeping track of things that went wrong.
Number 1, we're out of chocolate frosted sugar bomb cereal.
Horatio's mother did not always appreciate his lists.
I did not buy that. Your dad bought that.
Number 2, it is freezing in here.
Put on a sweater.
Number 3, Miss Watson is making us do a group project and they are the worst because everyone else drags me down.
Horatio, can you please focus on something positive for once?
Just keeping it real.
Oh, I know about positive stuff. Miss Christie told us.
Horatio's little sister Nala began rummaging around in the stacks of random paper on the counter.
There is nothing positive about this morning, and I'm positive about that.
Nala pulled out a scribbled-on handout and waved it triumphantly.
Philippians 4:8.
Do not read me a coloring sheet.
Finally, my brothers and sisters, always think about what is true. Think about what is noble, right, and pure.
Mom, make her stop bugging me.
No, this is good.
Think about what is lovely and worthy of respect. If anything is excellent or worthy of praise, think about those kinds of things.
Horatio just glared and checked out the lunch that Mom had packed.
Is this strawberry jam in my sandwich? You know I only eat apricot jam.
Over the next 2 hours, Horatio counted dozens of annoying things.
Number 1, this bus stinks like dirty socks stuffed with Cheetos. Number 2, the classroom door needs some WD-40. Number 3, Miss Watson is wearing yellow, and I hate yellow. Number 4, this pencil is making a giant callus on my finger. Number 5, group projects are still the worst. Number 6, it's way too hot over here.
And to make matters worse, Miss Watson had put Tish James in charge of the group. Ugh.
So, we get to do a report on Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. I'll write the history, and Jordan, you can paint a picture, and Horatio, you research stuff about the land and animals around it.
Number 7, Tish is super bossy.
Oh, and here's a picture of the lighthouse.
Tish held up a glossy photograph and Horatio opened his mouth, ready to complain about how boring lighthouses were. But he couldn't do it. Hatteras Lighthouse, spiraling into the sunset sky, was breathtaking. He could picture walking the beach and waves crashing as the warm light glowed overhead. And Horatio couldn't help hearing an echo of his little sister's voice.
Think about what is lovely and worthy of respect.
There it was, right in front of his face. Horatio found brand new thoughts forming in his brain.
Hey, that looks really cool. That's amazing.
It was as if a switch had flipped in Horatio's head. After seeing one good thing, he started to see more. Jordan had brought in some paintings he had done.
Number 1, Jordan, you are a really great artist.
Miss Watson helped Horatio solve some tough fractions by drawing a funny sketch.
Number 2, Miss Watson is a super creative teacher.
Mom had packed homemade cookies in Horatio's lunch.
Number 3, my mom makes the best chocolate chip cookies on the planet. Who wants to share?
By the time Horatio got off the school bus,
Number 4, Mr. Rob drove us right up to our house because of the rain.
he was actually smiling. Mom met them at the door.
Hey kids, how was school?
At that moment, Nala shook out her wet umbrella all over Horatio. And for a moment, Horatio frowned. Nala braced herself.
Sorry.
Number 5, I have a closet full of dry clothes upstairs.
Nala's eyebrows shot way up.
What happened to you?
Nothing. I just realized I've got some pretty great things to focus on.
So your day went okay?
Number 6, it was positively awesome.
Horatio beamed and ran upstairs to change his wet shirt. He had a lot of brand new lists to make up in his head.
It's amazing how things can change when we see them a little differently. And it really comes down to what we think about. It's what Paul was saying in his letter. Everything changes when we put our focus on what is good in our lives. And really, God is doing good things in us and around us all the time. We just have to pause and remember what is true. God loves us, He gives us what He needs, and He's always with us through the good times and the tough times. If we focus on those things, we will remember what matters most. Every day you can decide where you put your focus. The bottom line today, guys, is focus on what is true. Say it with me. Focus on what is true.
Hey, Zorro, we're friends, and you can tell me the truth. That'll show integrity.
You know, the truth is, I've been putting on an act. I need to drop the act. This horse isn't even real. This sword can't cut. This cape is a Velcro. I'm not Zorro. I'm Kyle.
Kyle, I knew that was you. I recognize you from your hair. Hey, thanks for being honest and showing integrity. Friends forever, buddy.
Friends forever.
Wow, it's Kyle behind the mask. I would have never guessed. You know what? It's kind of funny when we look back at bad things that have happened to us. Oftentimes, we see that God was up to something so good at the same time. When we change our focus, it changes the way you see everything in your life. I mean, think about what had happened to Jesus. He died on the cross, and it sure seemed like it was a terrible day. And it was. The disciples were sad, scared, and confused because of what had happened to their friend. But now we know that it was all part of God's plan. When Jesus came back to life, the disciples realized that God's plan was good from the beginning to the end. Maybe that's why Paul thought it was so important for us to think about things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and worthy of praise. If we remember that God has a plan for our lives, that can help us to focus on what really matters. If we set our minds on what is good, right, true, then we can choose to live with integrity. And remember what our bottom line is? Our bottom line is focus on what is true. Okay, go ahead and say it with me. Ready? Focus on what is true. That's something that you can do every day, and you can make the wise choice, and you can choose to think on purpose about what is true and about what is good. And you can choose to pay attention in what God is doing in your life, in the good times and in the bad times. Hey Steamboat kids, we will see you next week.